Leonard's on seed. Seed number 8, Gemini.
You know what's mind-boggling? Despite managing to crack our top 30 for most iconic robots, Gemini only has a total of 9 fights on Robot Wars. It even lost more of those than it won. And yet, Gemini is quite comfortably one of the most recognised robots from the show, even in spite of its much lower success rate in the main competition compared to its predecessor Mace, which opened the list at number 100. Gemini was the pioneer of the clusterbot on Robot Wars, allowing one heavyweight robot to split into 2 equally weighted halves and outnumber the opponent. This was so groundbreaking for Robot Wars that Gemini simply making their first movement in the arena became highlight reel footage for the rest of the series. Indeed, Gemini entered its very first series as the 8th seed and swept the board for awards, winning both the Best Design Award and the Most Original Entry Award in the same series, and even took home the Pinball Trophy. Whether or not you think a clusterbot consisting of 2 separate robots should have been permitted into the pinball competition in the first place is another matter, but Gemini still used its brief run to the Heat Final in order to become the first robot after Chaos 2 to throw another machine out of the arena. It even returned for the Celebrity Special with some success. Gemini was absolutely everywhere in Series 4, but deservedly so. Very few innovations in Robot Wars can claim to be as notable and memorable as the introduction of the clusterbot. Gemini collected its toy deal as it headed into Extreme, and although some issues with its infamous wheelie bars resulted in some early exits from its final appearances, Gemini remains well regarded to this day. After all, if the BattleBots competitor Gemini has competed in 3 seasons now and is still met with cries of "which one?" and "oh, Gemini from Robot Wars," you know the British pioneer made its mark.
David Harmsworth, her granddad, loves singing opera. Well, it's never all over until the fat lady sings! And the fat creature is singing now. Out of the arena, look at that, both of them flipping it up and over. Tremendous attack from the Gemini. Whoa, look at that. Oh, you nearly hit off camera. Watch out, Gemini, they're expensive.
From East Tilbury in Essex and number 6 seed, Spawn Again.
The most prominent machine to come out of the collective minds of Team Scutterbots, Graham Warner, Darren Ball and Luke Jackman took their sturdy chassis and powerful motors and created a monstrous flipper that they lovingly described as like Chaos, only bigger. And bigger it was. When Spawn Again was on, it was on, hurling 100 kilo robots around like boxes of tissue paper. Spawn Again produced 2 of the most visually appealing out of the arena flips in the history of the show. Its mighty flipper hurling robots in clean and graceful arcs as they flew over the arena wall. It consistently met the expectations set by its father and grandfather, winning heats in Series 5 and 6 and chalking up 10 combat victories overall. But with the good comes the bad. Spawn Again carried reliability issues like a nefarious odour, always sneaking in to stop Spawn Again from taking that next step. Its Series 6 campaign was particularly infamous, with fans bemoaning the loss of the favoured supernova to 1 flip from the limping Spawn Again. But as Olaremi Idris would say, Judgment Day can always be postponed. Spawn Again seemed to be in its best ever form for Series 7 and was living up to its 6th seeding, but after many years of increased demand on its ageing weapons system, Spawn Again's flipper dramatically exploded against Raging Nightmare in the Heat Final and resulted in Team Scutterbots' only Heat failure in 5 attempts. The unreliability factor means that Spawn Again rarely attracts passion from the Robot Wars fanbase, but its victories, seedings and out of the arena flips cannot be denied, and nor can its place in the top 30 Robot Wars icons.
Need a machine, and there with a snow plough front as well, and the axe comes down. Spawn Again dodges and seems to think Chip is the weakest. Oh goodness me, yes it was! They've had their chips. They're out! What an attack there by Spawn Again! Bang!
From Kettering, seed number 9, 101.
As plucky a machine as they get, Mike Franklin's 101 was a great demonstration of making the most of what you have. A remarkably cheap robot made from the recycled parts and pieces of its predecessor Robodoc, 101 was one of the best promotions for getting into your tool shed and seeing what you and your kids could make. With an auto-firing spike and tenacious aggression, 101 managed to stand out as the best of the tracked machines in Robot Wars. 101 collected a number of famous victories in its career, beginning with a memorable top 8 finish in its debut series. It bullied both Centurion and King Buxton, the latter fight avenging Robodoc's loss from Series 2 and forging one of the show's most famous rivalries. Throughout its fighting career, 101 seemingly built up an innate ability to force breakdowns upon other machines. A curse, if you will, with most of its defeated opponents becoming immobilized by the simple machine. In its battle to earn a place in the Series 3 Grand Final, 101 held up against Hypnodisc so well, the judges had to personally inspect the machines for damage before they could make a decision. What caps off 101's Series 3 debut, though, is its performance in the first World Championship. One of the many British representatives in the tournament, 101 stood out by memorably snatching victory from the jaws of defeat against Panic Attack, and took out Weldor as well to finish in the top 4. 101's loss to Razor in the semi-final was as one-sided as they come, but in the best way possible. The big Pierce Here drawings and Amy's ode to Craig Charles were just a small part of what made a dull fight downright charming. However, as evidence to the speed of robot innovation, 101 went from being one of the best machines of Series 3 to downright outdated by Series 4. But that did not stop Mike Franklin or his machine, not one bit. 101's performance against Dominator 2, a robot so superior that it felt almost unfair even to hold the battle, was a benchmark that many robots in other heats would very rarely meet. Despite having almost no hope, 101 attacked Dominator 2 with ferocity and took the deadly newcomer to the judges. 101 would cap off Series 4 with a victory in the inaugural Tag Team Terror Tournament with longtime rival and partner King B3, perhaps the most fitting team in Robot Wars history. Extreme 1 and Series 5 were unkind to 101, though it still earned a seeding and a final victory over King Buxton to settle their rivalry. And it used its final defeat to offload the supposed curse onto Fluffy for the rest of its career. Being able to snatch something out of every situation was 101's greatest strength, and the reason why it places so highly on our list.
Look at the controls, he's built a model jet engine in the past. He needs something to fly now for 101. Oh! Panic Attack's driven itself into the pit! And 101 survives!
Cease.
Well, Panic Attack threw themselves down there! Look at this! Ken Davis drove himself into the pit, and 101 lucky enough to just stay out!
From Belmont in Herefordshire and number 11 seed, Exterminator.
Exterminator had been born early enough to naturally grow into the elite names on the show, and in its opening couple of series, it showed great promise. It gave the champions Panic Attack a mighty scare in its debut series, and even beat a World Championship runner-up in Behemoth en route to the Series 4 semi-finals. By the end of the 80kg weight era of the show, Exterminator was a well-respected name. It won a good amount of fights, and had a pullback toy too. Not even the likes of Wild Thing, Dominator 2 or Team Scutterbots could say that. However, despite its consistent presence on the show, Exterminator could not muster the tools to fully break through. Though it experimented with a series of axes, none of them were able to make the impression of Dominator 2, and by the time Extreme 2 rolled around, Exterminator had started slipping further away from the other machines it once previously was an equal to. Exterminator's Robot Wars career had largely settled into being a good veteran and nothing more. It seemed like all of those years trying to improve Exterminator had actually seen it fall behind. Talk about making up for lost time though. In a series where outdated designs and experienced veterans fell aplenty, Exterminator completely overhauled its design and decided to join the modern era in Series 7. Marlon Pritchard and Simon Baldwin tried adding a lifter, they tried making a bigger axe, but they needed an answer. And that answer was a relentless vertical spinning disc. Exterminator finally had an answer it had been waiting for after all of these years. It wrecked Diabolus with all but a glancing blow, booted Killer Carrot 2 over the arena wall, and carved Tsunami apart in dramatic circumstances in the Heat final. Not many people would expect Exterminator to be a top 4 machine going into Series 7, but it reached those heights by obliterating Bulldog Breed, in which Tony Summerfield praised as a bigger destruction than when his machine had faced Hypnodisc in the past. And for making it as deep as it did in its final series, with one of the most pleasing resurgences in the history of the show, as well as the versatile designs and fun fights we saw from it over the course of its history, Exterminator rightfully sits in the higher regions of our list.
What a good machine Exterminator is though. Number 11 seeds and hugely improved. I saw there just a flicker of flame. Sparks flying. The blade spinning. The weaponry potent. That has been their problem in the past. A durable machine has lacked that killing instinct. It now has it with the blade, and Exterminator could be a force in Robot Wars: The Seventh Wars. Tsunami out, it's over! A brilliant effort comes to an end. Exterminator, Heat winners. Ecstasy and joy for Simon Baldwin and Marlon Pritchard.
From Norwich, and number 14 seed, Thermidor 2.
When thinking of a robot that combined good looks and functionality, the bright red lobster Thermidor 2 comes to mind very early on. An upgrade to the original Thermidor, David Harding and Ian Harvey managed to blend a flipper seamlessly between its grabbing claws. Not only did Thermidor 2 look good, it was a strong performer in battle, disposing of 2 seeds in its first 2 battles, and only falling short of the top 8 by losing to a nail-biter with Pussycat. Building upon this success, Thermidor 2 became the 3rd flipper to score an out-the-arena flip, and most notably the first to throw 2 robots out in a single fight, easily tossing Behemoth and Stinger out of the war zone. Coming out of Extreme 1 with all eyes on its prowess, Thermidor 2 hit a few massive air pockets in its wildly erratic career. First round losses in Series 5 and 6 hurt Thermidor 2's reputation as an all-star. But just as soon as it was falling to the bottom of the bucket, it placed 2nd in a dominant Annihilator and notched up a 2nd semi-final appearance in the 7th Wars with a 4th out of the arena under its belt. At the end of its very long career, Thermidor 2 made a surprise return to the rebooted Series 8, delighting many fans with the news that the machine still existed in relatively the same form. Its battle performance was nothing to be thrilled with, but just by appearing, Thermidor 2 climbed to equal 3rd longest appearing robot in the history of the show. Only Razor and Behemoth appeared in more seasons of Robot Wars, confirming Thermidor 2 as one of the brightest characters in a long-running show.
Stinger spins! Thermidor again on Behemoth, they're out of the arena, they've gone! Look at that, 95 kilos simply dumped out of the arena! Bang! They're almost unbeatable, Behemoth! Until this moment. Great power! Thermidor may well think David Harding and Ian Harvey is driving, they've done enough! But they've done even more! Stinger's gone! They've knocked both of them out! Thermidor, last man standing, the only one in! There went Stinger! Out of the arena. That was mightily impressive by the lobster.
What an amazing battle!
From Reading, Aftershock.
By now you've probably realised that Will Thomas's Shockwave is not going to appear on the list. Shockwave was a perfectly adequate machine, functional in design and competent in a fight, but it invoked very little passion. What Will and Ian Thomas built next, however, was off the charts in every way. Aftershock's design was a marvel, compact and deadly, and able to self-right purely on the momentum of its vertical spinner. In combat, it was an absolute terror, humiliating huge all-stars like Terahertz and Apollo, while robots like Rapid and Sabretooth were barely able to function after a sustained bout with Aftershock in its debut series. This debut saw Aftershock romp its way to 4th place in Series 9, a position which, if anything, felt too low for the dangerous spinner. Even the arena wasn't safe from Aftershock, who smashed the walls, the floor, and even the floor flipper. Though it was never able to overcome Carbide or Eruption in a fight, there was little doubt that Aftershock was in the upper class of the reboot series, and even in a short Series 10 campaign, Aftershock was able to claim the honour of being the only robot to defeat Gabriel by a KO, which neither Ironside nor Pulsar nor the monstrous Carbide could claim. Aftershock was a short-lived member of the reboot royalty, but it was able to make its impression for sure.
The armament's gone from the top. The hopes are gone. Oh dear. Dreams shattered. Machine in shards.
Stop!
They're dead, boy. They're dead. And they know they've won. No further punishment. The coup de grace already given.
From Ipswich in Suffolk and number 16 seed Storm 2.
Following in the wake of the devastating tornado that had swept through Series 6, Ed Hubbard's bot Storm 2, a Rambot with ungodly drive power, made immediate touchdown in the New Blood tournament. In a tournament notorious for poor bots and an even poorer standard of battles, Storm 2 couldn't help but stand out. Taking the full body hammer concept of Tornado and ramping it up, Storm 2 was a nigh on unstoppable force in the arena, hitting like a hurricane and overwhelming its opponent with sheer brute strength. Despite the best efforts of Thor and Mew, Storm 2 would take the New Blood trophy, earning the 16th seed in Series 7, the only team to be seeded in their first main series. Storm 2 showed New Blood was no fluke, swung aside all who challenged it in the heats and slamming Steel Avenger hard enough against the wall to, somehow, pop them right out the arena. From here, the tempers could not be calmed, with Storm 2 denying Firestorm a near unbroken run of Grand Final appearances, and proving itself the lower, faster, stronger, and generally superior bot in its battle with its role model Tornado. Ultimately, it took a Typhoon to disperse Storm in the title battle, a fight that matches the legendary Series 6 title fight in both quality and controversy. The UK Championship just eluded Storm 2's grasp, but it could console itself with the third World Championship trophy, well earned after a short, violent bout against Supernova, and a title it would wear proudly for years to come. Storm 2 would return with the reboot a very different bot, a slower, wary machine, more measured but lacking the thrill and flair of its younger days, despite victories against bots like PP3D and future champions Eruption. Regardless, its glory days saw some of the greatest displays of power the classic series ever saw, a true campaign of shock and awe, and will forever stand as proof that sometimes all you need is 4 wheels and a lot of drive to go all the way.
Storm 2 pressurising. Steel Avenger running away. And again turning for safety in space. In the war zone. Pursue! Crumpled out! Gone! Storm 2, the heat winners, and through to the series semi-final. And a shake of the head by John Willoughby because he knew Steel Avenger, simply in the end, couldn't avoid defeat. Storm 2 picked it up, drove, and hammered it out.
From Hampshire, Nuts 2.
In rebooting Robot Wars, the producers would have been looking for the new Chaos 2 and Hypnodisc, and those roles were easily filled by competitive live event Roboteers. Harder to fill were the shoes left empty by the likes of Steve Merrill, Mike Onslow, and Dr. Zulu. Robot Wars was a show about entertainment, and one only had to look at Team Nuts' colorful vests and silly hats to know they were just what rebooted Robot Wars needed. Nuts was the embodiment of silly fun that could still be had in this reboot era, trundling around the arena, its chain flails flopping everywhere. Nuts in Series 8 was not destined to go far, the sit-and-spin weapon being easy to thwart. It sabotaged Terahertz's round robin by refusing to die, but scored no wins of its own. In Series 9, Nuts, now called Nuts 2, had its antics stopped very short by an incredible hit from Matilda that sent it sailing out of the arena. And in Series 10, fans prepared for more laughs in a heat to be dominated by Concussion or Iron Awe 6. How wrong they were. Nuts 2 had perfected Melty Brain technology, an AI feature that let it spin on the spot and move around at the same time, and its chains went from being passive nuisances to highly dangerous flails, which ripped open Androne 4000 and Concussion with just glancing blows. The Heat victory was one thing, but the next battle was a true showstopper, a double act of vengeance, dumping Behemoth in the pit with a sneak mini-bot attack on the pit release, before a flail attack dislodged Carbide's chain, and saw Nuts 2 defeat the nearly unbeatable champion in arguably the most remarkable attack of the reboot. Though Nuts 2 fell to Carbide when they met again, the forgettable final clash was nowhere near enough to taint one of the greatest underdog runs in the history of the show, and seal Nuts 2 as a true all-star, not only in entertainment, but in combat prowess.
Oh, that's one of the Nuts 2 little mini-bots out there. They push the pit, and down go Thermal.
What happened there?
The little one pushed the pit.
Oh, dang it.
Utter confusion in the Bearmont team. Oh! Well, that was gone. I think that's Carbide's chain, which drives the weaponry from that last attack by Nuts 2.
From Ash, Wild Thing.
The Wild Thing series of robots are all the embodiment of determination and character. And I don't just mean the evil face decals on the front of them, though they do help. The Wild Thing machines never failed to make the semi-finals, winning 4 consecutive heats to do so. And no matter which version you look at, they all had the uncanny ability to never give up and never die. Sure, Thing 2 was KO'd against Panic Attack in Series 3, and yes, Wild Thing was KO'd against Firestorm in Extreme Series 1. However, these were via flipping. Wild Thing was never rendered immobile as far as locomotion was concerned, even when taking severe punishment. Even the Series 6 version managed to survive huge hits from 259 and Vader before going on to beat them both convincingly. However, Wild Thing truly shone in Series 4 and 5. In Series 4, despite taking horrendous damage from Hypnodisc, Wild Thing nearly pulled off one of the biggest comebacks in Robot Wars history, as it kept fighting back and took Hypnodisc to a close judge's decision. Fast forward to the next series and it gave reigning champions Chaos 2 one of its closest and toughest fights in its career. This battle is widely regarded as one of the best battles in Robot Wars history, reboot included. When George Francis says your robot gave him the best fight of his career, you know you've done a good job, and any robot capable of doing so is worthy of being called iconic. And that sums up Wild Thing perfectly. The plucky icon that never gave up.
Wild Thing is tossed, Will Self-Right, levering itself up on that arm. Tries to get the 6000 RPM spinning disc into action. They are still here, courageously fighting back, and Chaos 2 again, toppled onto its side. How did they stay out? How on earth did they survive another onslaught? Look at this! Surely they must go into the pit of oblivion! And George Francis breathes again and lives another Robot Wars life. The clock is ticking down on one of the most bruising and thrilling Robot Wars battles I can ever remember. Fantastic!
What an amazing battle!
From Deal in Kent, the number 6 seed, Dominator 2.
Always banging on the edge of greatness is our next entry, Dominator 2. You would struggle to find a more consistent robot, finishing in the top 8 3 times out of 3, and it would always take out some big names along the way. The second Dominator 2 debuted, viewers could tell that it was destined to win the heat. Dominator 2's golden flame design lit up the screen, and it introduced casual watchers to phrases like BioWare design, and most famously, Plasma Nitride coated titanium, whatever that is. Dominator 2 could do things with its axe that seemed possible only in our imaginations at the time, whether it was killing Henry 2 in seconds, clamping Firestorm 2 to its wedge, or shaking itself free from an arena wall. Dominator 2 started strong and it only got stronger, taking down All-Stars like 101 and Firestorm 2 before becoming the only robot besides Raider to defeat Chaos 2 by knockout during its championship years. The Northern Annihilator was Dominator 2's shot at greatness, and it seemed to have it all sealed up until it just fell apart at the final stage. But it remained a staple of the show, fitting comfortably alongside other All-Stars like Wild Thing and Spawn again, despite having just over half of the main series appearances of Nick Adams and Team Scuttlebots. Dominator 2 was a heavyweight in both offense and defense, displaying both in its final few bouts with Hypnodisc and 13 Black. While the podiums for other weapon types have since been crowded by new All-Stars, Dominator 2 sits firmly on the pantheon of some truly amazing axe bots, a position it has held since its very first fight.
New tyres on Dominator 2, and again down comes the axe. Look at the blade. Oh, lifting, plucking at the powerful flipping arm of Firestorm 2.